Monday was perfect. You woke up and something was just on. Before the coffee. Before you checked your phone. You sat down and the work moved. Not the grinding kind where every paragraph feels like dragging furniture across a hardwood floor. The effortless kind. 3 hours vanished. You'd produced more than you normally do in a day and a half. Skipped lunch without noticing. By 6 p.m. your to-do list was demolished. You felt sharp, fast, locked in. And you went to bed thinking, if I could just do this every day, everything changes. Here's the part nobody warned you about. That Monday, the one that felt like the answer, was quietly draining a neurochemical account you didn't know you had, and the bill was already being written for Wednesday. Tuesday was fine, coasted on fumes. Then Wednesday. Wednesday was a different human being sitting in your chair. Same desk, same laptop, same project file. Nothing moved. Your brain felt like someone had wrapped it in wet cotton. You read the same email 4 times. Opened a document and stared at it for 8 minutes without typing a word. The motivation wasn't missing. That's what messes with you. You wanted to work. The capacity was gone. The engine that redlined on Monday was barely idling, and no amount of coffee could find the accelerator. By 2 p.m. you'd accomplished almost nothing, and you were turning the knife inward. What's wrong with me? Am I just someone who has one good day and then falls apart? No. Monday ate Wednesday. Neurochemically. Metabolically. Monday spent resources that Wednesday needed. And nobody told you because Monday felt like the answer to every productivity question you've ever asked. But Monday was writing checks your brain couldn't cash until Wednesday. And by the time Wednesday showed up, the account was empty. You weren't inconsistent. You were overdrafted. And the overdraft has a mechanism, a timeline, and this is the part that changes everything. Warning signs you can learn to read before the account empties. Your brain runs on a neurochemical budget. Dopamine for drive. Norepinephrine for focus. Acetylcholine for sustained attention. Cortisol for emergency energy when the others run low. On a peak productive day, you spend all of these at 3 to 5 times your normal rate. And just like a bank account, you can spend more than you have. Feels fine while you're doing it. But the replenishment rate is fixed. Your brain manufactures these neurochemicals far slower than you burned through them on Monday. The deficit builds silently. 24 to 72 hours later, usually around Wednesday, the balance hits zero and everything shuts down. Like a card getting declined mid-transaction. That's cognitive overdraft. And the reason your productive weeks always have the same shape, explosive start, mysterious collapse in the middle, slow crawl back by Friday, isn't personality. It's accounting. The day I realized something was mechanically wrong wasn't a Wednesday. It was a Thursday. I'd had a monster Monday and Tuesday, back-to-back deep work days, probably 14 hours of focused output across both. Wednesday was sluggish, but I muscled through. Then Thursday morning I sat down to write a 3-line email. Subject line. Greeting. 1 sentence confirming a meeting time. Sign off. I stared at that screen for 22 minutes. I checked the clock, 22 minutes for an email that required 0 creativity, 0 decision-making, 0 effort. And I couldn't do it. Not because I didn't know what to write, because the words wouldn't form. I'd start a sentence and lose the ending before I reached the middle. Like trying to carry water in my hands. I could see exactly what I needed to say, but it leaked through my fingers before I could type it. I wrote that email at 2 p.m., 4.5 hours after sitting down. 3 sentences. That night I opened a spreadsheet and started tracking my output days against my crash days. 6 weeks of data. The pattern was so clean it looked fake. Every crash landed exactly 48 to 72 hours after a peak day. Every single one. Not random. Not personality. A receipt. So why had nobody mentioned this? The productivity industry, the books, the courses, the videos, the apps, is organized around one question: how do I have more productive days? The implied promise is that the ideal life is Monday every single day. Peak performance, sustained indefinitely, with the right system. That promise moves units. Here's how to operate at your best every day, sells millions. Here's why your best day biologically requires 2 days of strategic underperformance to be sustainable. Doesn't make it to a book jacket. Recovery is invisible. It doesn't look productive. It doesn't make content. You can't take a before and after photo of neurochemical replenishment. So the entire conversation about productivity shows you how to spend more, work deeper, focus longer, output harder, without ever mentioning the balance. A financial advisor who teaches you to make big purchases but never mentions the money has to come from somewhere. You've been following spending advice with no accounting system and blaming yourself when the checks bounce on Wednesday. What you need isn't more productivity advice. You need an accounting system, a way to monitor your cognitive spending in real time, a ratio that keeps spending sustainable, and a recovery framework for the days after a peak performance. 3 protocols. Not for having more productive days, for making your productive days survivable. So Monday stops eating Wednesday. And the first protocol starts with a question that's going to mess with you, because the signs were there every time. You just read them backwards. Here's why cognitive overdraft is invisible. Every warning sign feels like evidence you're at your peak. Your brain doesn't send a low battery notification during deep work. The deficit signals disguise themselves as momentum. You have to read them backwards. 4 signals. Each one feels like winning. Each one means the account is entering the red. First, the false second wind. About 4 hours in. You should be getting tired. Instead, a surge. Your posture changes. You were slumping around hour 3 and suddenly you straighten up, lean forward. Typing speed picks up. Warmth in your chest that feels like confidence. That's cortisol. Your dopamine and norepinephrine started depleting, and the brain flooded the system with stress hormones to keep you running. Transferring money from savings to cover a checking account running dry. Every minute past the false second wind is funded by Wednesday's resources. That surge isn't a gift. It's a loan with a brutal interest rate. Second, time blindness. 3 hours evaporated, and it felt like 45 minutes. Everyone celebrates this as flow. It is. But it's also a diagnostic flag. Your prefrontal cortex redirected its time-tracking resources to the task. The time function got defunded to keep focus running. When you finally check the clock, notice that brief dizzy moment. Eyes refocusing. The room louder than you remember. Sudden awareness of your body like you'd forgotten you had one. The accountant went home and the credit card was still active. Third, appetite suppression. You skipped lunch and didn't notice. Too locked in to eat. Reality. Your brain deprioritized hunger because processing it requires the same attentional resources your task is consuming. If you're 4+ hours in and haven't felt hungry, pause. Check your actual stomach. There's usually a low-grade tightness, slightly acidic, running on empty. The signal is being sent. The brain is blocking it. Eat anyway. 15 minutes isn't lost productivity. It's a deposit. Fourth, the one that gets people. The clarity high. Arrives late. Hour 6, 7, 8. Ideas connecting effortlessly. Solutions appearing fully formed. The entire project visible from above with crystalline precision. Feels like genius. It's not. It's the neurochemical equivalent of the euphoria a hypothermic person feels before losing consciousness. A final burst of reward chemicals as the reserves empty. Notice the feeling in your temples. Not a headache. A lightness. There's a subtle satisfaction on your face you don't register. That's the last withdrawal before the account hits zero. When you feel that clarity after 6+ hours, stop. Not in 5 minutes. Now. That's the account emptying in real time. Set a checkpoint alarm every 90 minutes. When it fires, am I on the first wind or the second? Do I know what time it is? Am I hungry? Does everything feel unusually clear? If any answer is a warning signal, stop for 60 minutes. The spend tracker doesn't limit your productive days. It makes them sustainable. If this is landing for you, hit the subscribe. I make content that treats productivity like a system to decode, not a hustle to glorify. Okay, so now you can see the overdraft happening. But here's the part that stung when I figured it out. Even my breaks were making it worse. Let me describe your breaks. You finish a deep work block. You're fried. You pick up your phone. 10 minutes of Instagram. Some Twitter. 2 minutes of a YouTube video you won't finish. A couple of texts. Maybe a podcast while you make coffee. Then you sit back down and try to work, and it feels like you never stopped. Because you didn't. Your brain doesn't distinguish between productive work stimulation and entertainment stimulation when it comes to neurochemical spending. Dopamine fires when you see a notification. Norepinephrine spikes when you read something surprising on your feed. The scroll is designed to trigger the exact same reward chemicals you just spent 90 minutes burning through at your desk. You switched from spending at the office to spending at the mall. Different store, same credit card, same account. The balance kept dropping the entire time you thought you were resting. Okay, but what does real recovery actually look like? Uncomfortable answer. Your brain needs time that is low stimulation, low input, and low engagement. Not relaxing, boring. The distinction matters. Watching a show, scrolling, gaming. These are low effort, but high stimulation. Your body rests. Your neurochemical system keeps spending because the stimulation keeps the reward pathways active. What replenishes the account is the state nobody wants to enter. Unstimulated stillness. Staring out a window. Walking without headphones. Sitting on a bench doing nothing. Lying on a couch without your phone. These feel like wasting time. They are the only thing that lets dopamine and norepinephrine production outpace expenditure. Every time you give the system something to process, a scroll, a notification, a podcast, you interrupt the refill. Trying to fill a bathtub with the drain open. The 90-60 rule. 90 minutes of focused cognitive work, followed by 60 minutes of low stimulation time. Not 90-15. Not 90-30. 90-60. I know that sounds extreme. Here's the math. 2 cycles of 90-60 gives you 3 hours of deep work with 2 hours of recovery. 3 hours of sustainable, overdraft-free output that doesn't crash your Wednesday. Compare that to what most people do. 6 to 8 hours of continuous or poorly rested work that produces a great Monday and a useless Wednesday through Friday. 3 protected hours beat 6 borrowed ones every week without the crash. What does the 60 look like? Walk outside without earbuds. Eat a meal slowly with your phone in another room. Sit somewhere and let your mind drift. Don't direct it. Don't journal. Don't force anything. Just exist without input. The 60 minutes will feel uncomfortable for the first 2 weeks. That discomfort is the feeling of your brain actually replenishing instead of recycling stimulation and calling it rest. After 2 weeks, the 60 stops feeling like wasted time. It starts feeling like the reason your 90 works. All right, so you can track the overdraft, and you can protect each work session with the ratio. But what about the day after the peak? Because that's where most people blow the whole thing up. Here's what you do the day after a peak performance. You sit down and try to work at Monday's level. You can't. So you push harder. Force yourself through emails, through meetings, through tasks that need sharpness you don't have. Every forced cognitive effort on an empty account doesn't just fail. It extends the deficit. Running on a broken ankle because you have somewhere to be. You're not rehabilitating. you're deepening the injury. Wednesday doesn't just underperform, it steals from Thursday, sometimes Friday. One unmanaged post-peak day turns a 48-hour recovery into a 96-hour slump. Your bad week wasn't a bad week. It was one overdrafted Monday followed by 4 days of withdrawals from an account that needed a deposit. The Wednesday protocol has 3 components. First, the admin day. The day after a peak day is not a creative day, not a deep work day. It's an admin day. Schedule it in advance. Fill it with low cognitive load tasks, answering emails, organizing files, scheduling, routine correspondence. These feel unproductive to your ego, but they keep your day structured, preventing the despair spiral of, "I can't do anything today," and they demand so little from the neurochemical budget that your brain restocks reserves while you're doing them. Recovery doesn't require inactivity. It requires low-demand activity. Second, the sleep debt window. The night after a peak day, your brain needs 60 to 90 minutes more sleep than normal. Not because you'll feel tired. You probably won't. After a high-output day, cortisol is still elevated, creating a weird paradox. You feel wired, but your reserves are empty. The brain does most of its neurochemical replenishment during deep sleep, specifically slow-wave cycles that dominate the later hours. Cutting sleep to your usual 6.5 or 7 hours after a peak day is like making minimum payments after a spending spree. Covering interest, but the principal isn't moving. After a peak day, go to bed earlier, not later. That extra sleep isn't a luxury. It's the deposit that funds Thursday. Third, the reintroduction sequence. On the second day after the peak, typically Thursday, don't return to deep work at full throttle. Start with 45 minutes of focused work, then a 30-minute low-stimulation break, then 60 minutes. Break, then 90. You're testing the balance before making large withdrawals. If 45 minutes feels smooth, the account is refilling. If it feels like fog, stay on admin another half day. That's checking your bank balance before a purchase. Takes 2 minutes, prevents a week of overdraft. Now step back. Imagine a phone with a battery that doesn't show a percentage. No icon, no low power warning. Screen stays bright, apps run perfectly. Right until the battery hits 0 and the phone dies mid-sentence. No warning. Some days it lasts 14 hours. Some days it dies at lunch. You'd think it was broken. It was never broken. The battery was being drained at different rates by different activities, and you had no way to see it because the indicator was hidden. That is your brain on cognitive overdraft. Productive days drain it faster. Entertainment-style rest drains it from a different app. The crash 48 hours later isn't a defect. It's a dead battery on a phone that never showed you the number. The spend tracker, the 90-60 rule, the Wednesday protocol, that's the battery indicator. For the first time, you can see the percentage, and once you can see it, you'll never mistake a dead battery for a broken phone again. So here's what your next Monday looks like. The first one where you actually manage the account. Your next Monday is coming. Might be tomorrow. Might be next week. But there will be a day when everything clicks. The focus, the output, the feeling of being exactly the person you want to be. And for the first time, you're going to see that day for what it actually is. Not a gift, a transaction, a large withdrawal from a neurochemical account you now know how to monitor. Here's what I want you to do on that day. Set a 90-minute alarm. When it fires, check the 4 signals. Am I on the second wind? Have I lost track of time? Am I hungry? Does everything feel unusually clear? If any signal is present, take 60 minutes of low stimulation time. No phone, no podcast, no scrolling, just exist. Then return for another 90. After 2 cycles, 3 hours of deep work with real recovery, stop deep work for the day. Switch to admin tasks. That night, go to bed 60 to 90 minutes early. Next morning, Start with a 45-minute focus block and check how it feels. Smooth means the account is recovering. Fog means stay on admin. One Monday, managed differently. And when Wednesday arrives and you're functional, not euphoric, not grinding, just clear and capable, you'll feel something unfamiliar. A productive day that didn't cost you anything. A Monday that paid for itself. You've been chasing Mondays your entire working life. Every productivity book, every morning routine, every system and app and hack was designed to give you more Mondays. Nobody asked the question that actually matters. What does Monday cost? Now you know. And the answer isn't stop having Mondays. The answer is stop letting Monday write checks that Wednesday has to cover. Monitor the spending. Enforce the ratio. Protect the recovery. Monday was never the problem. The invoice was. You've been having killer Mondays and devastating Wednesdays for years, and blaming your character for a balance sheet you never knew existed. The productive days aren't destroying you. The unmanaged withdrawals are. Track the spend. Enforce the ratio. Protect the recovery. And for the first time, Monday pays for itself. Tell me what your Monday looks like and what your Wednesday looks like. Be specific. Monday, I wrote 3,000 words in 4 hours. Wednesday, I stared at a blank doc for 45 minutes and then reorganized my desktop icons. That honesty. Because naming the pattern is the first entry in the ledger, and a ledger beats 100 productivity tips. Subscribe for more content that treats productivity as accounting, not motivation.